Hi, everyone. My name is Daisy Olsum, and I'm here to do a presentation for the regulatory landscape and policy breakout session for this conference. And the name of this presentation is going to be Chemistry is Dead, the new classes of chemicals and current changes to the regulatory landscape. So the objectives of this workshop really is to introduce you to the concept of ethroids and aethroids, provide insight into potential business opportunities these chemicals can support you in creating, and then also give insight into changes in chemical engineering due to recent events. Now, because this specific track is about like regulatory frameworks, it's really important to see how these chemicals have been creating havoc on the planet and how ethroids and positive nathroids can change that, and as well as how we can really create a specific framework to handle a lot of the nathroids that are in forever chemicals, that are in some of these different elements that we use every day, that are in our pharmaceuticals and our food, etc., so they don't create bigger issues, okay? So that's really going to be the objectives of this workshop. So first things first, what are ethroids? New classes of chemicals. Why haven't I heard about this? We'll talk about that a little bit later. But long story short, ethroids are classes of chemicals that function to stabilize elements into the physical reality. So a lot of the elements that we work with, like lead or oxygen or carbon or whatnot, they don't exist on their own. They have specific etheric layers that carry specific intelligences that allow them to act within our body and allow them to function within our 3D environment, just based on the forces of physics that are here. Okay, this is very interesting. So you mean to tell me that most of the elements that we're working with, they're not actually elements, they're compounds. Exactly, because if it was an element, that means it's standing alone, but it's actually a compound. And this is one of the reasons why there's some of the work that's happening behind the scenes in regards to rewriting the periodic table of elements. So what I put here basically is really, these are how ethroids are visualized. We either use like the Lewis structure or the valence structure or the geometric patterns to showcase chemicals. But with the ethroids, the way that you showcase them is actually through a spiral. And why is because behind the spiral, you're able to activate a specific energy that allows you to work with these elements in their purest form, which is their etheric form. And we'll talk about that in a moment. What does that really look like? So what are the core attributes of ethroids? So ethroids, they operate differently than most of the chemicals we work with, right? So ethroids have intelligences. What's an intelligence? An intelligence is the way in which something operates, right? So when we look at states of matter, they carry a specific type of intelligence, right? When we look at even certain things that we find out in nature, like certain gases, certain phytochemicals, even certain minerals, they carry specific type of intelligences. And those intelligences either have a core function to expand, right? Expand whatever they're working with, retract whatever they're working with, or implement, give it the ability to add another intelligence within the compound that it's working within. So ethroids really are all about the increase, the decrease, the expansion of, the retraction of intelligences, all right? So some of the other characteristics include a number sequence. So right now in chemistry and biotechnology, we're working with something called nano. And nanotechnology is really like the height of data storage and the height in terms of a particulate size matter. They're trying to get what's the smallest I can get in terms of like particulate size matter with the largest storage of data. And they're saying that it was nano, but it's actually Aiche's rare. There's actually a whole world of mathematics that we don't have access to because a lot of this was hidden, a lot of this was lost, and this is the work that we're doing to bring this information down. So ethroids actually work within a number sequence called the Aiche's rare. Okay, so this set of numbers is called Aiche's rare, and the Aiche's rare acts as both a storage of value, but it also acts as the symbols and the name itself act as a carrier of value. What do you mean? Meaning by you, when you invoke the numbers, the number sequence, either through writing it down or in a computer program, it's actually carrying the whole entirety of the number itself. Oh, that's very interesting. So when they talk about quantum computing, if you're not using the number sequence of the Aiche's rare or the number sequence that the nathroids operate in, which is the Aiche's rare, meaning something is going to constantly retract on itself or constantly be reduced, you're not going to be able to like work with these chemicals. You're not going to be able to work with a quantum computing. Thank you so much. So when we're talking about structures, a lot of the times when we're working in chemistry, we use, like I said, the Lewis structure or the valence structure, or just like the basic 3D geometric forms in chemistry. And when you're working with etherites as well as nathoroids, you use the spiral, meaning something is going to continue on. And that's how you activate the power of an etheroid when you're working with it in chemical engineering. And then on top of that, when you're working with etheroids, they carry a specific type of geometric patterning, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So of course, you're still going to have your hexagrams and your octagons, and even in some instances, etheroids carry decagons as well. Okay, we're moving higher, and that actually allows for like more complex chemical compounds and equations that can carry more intelligences, communicate with more what we call mediums, meaning with this etheroid, I can create a connection between specific forms of hardware and even software and chemical components. Okay, that's cool. With etheroids, I can actually create communications and reactions and new compounds between forces of physics and chemicals, or forces of physics and like technology. Oh, okay, that's cool. So I can actually start to activate forces of physics just through my keyboard, right? That's actually what we're working with here when we're talking about new chemical systems, new mathematical systems, and new physics systems that all work with etheroids. Okay, so this is a pure example of how you activate the power of etheroids within the geometric patterning. So right here, this is just an example of something that we offer on my healthcare website, r2bhealthtech.com, which is a digital pharmacy, wherein we can take any chemical combination and actually transfer it into the etheric geometric structure. So instead of you having to go to the over-the-counter, go to the pharmacist, take pills, ingest them. Your body has to go through all these different reactions to make sure you can try to get just a little bit of that metformin or whatever that you're taking into your body to try to help your cells. You're actually getting the raw and complete like formula without any of the byproducts or adverse reactions. And this is what we're bringing forth. And there's been a lot of like struggle to not have our work plagiarized. There's a lot of what we call academic clout chasing. There's just been a lot to try to stop this work from coming out because it's changing a lot of the field. What do you mean? You mean to tell me that I actually can utilize different like compounds in its raw form, activate forces of physics to actually get it into my body or my etheric system or into my energy fields or into my crops or into my food or into my storage of chemicals. And then I don't have to go through like a lengthy process of chemical engineering where I'm using expensive machines or nathoroids or forever chemicals that are actually having an adverse effect on the environment. Exactly. So this is what we're trying to bring out into this reality. So what are some of the potentials in startups and existing businesses? Well, superconductors, etheroids act as superconductors. So imagine we start to put some of these etheroids that exist into your oil or your gas storage, right? Let's say, for instance, you have a company where you're doing something with oil or natural gas, or you have like a food company or energy company, and we can use etheroids in that business because of the number sequence that they work in and because of the structure that they operate in, which is this etheric chemistry, etheric geometry and etheric chemistry. I'm actually able to reduce the amount of oil that I would normally use. Let's say, for instance, I have to use like 18 gallons here. I can actually use like half of that. And then there's no like harmful byproduct because the etheroid actually transforms it into another type of superconductor, right, within the whole entire chemical formula. So you mean to tell me that instead of doing all that, I can still get more, but using less, and actually have a positive effect on the environment with less of the different hardware that I would usually use and less of the different chemicals that I would usually use. Exactly. So this is what we're trying to like bring up, a new type of sustainability. So chemical engineering, right? So with this new type of chemical engineering that we're trying to introduce, you don't have to use expensive molecules or expensive platforms or look for conductors to move this chemical into that chemical or to create bonds. And let's see if it works with expensive testing and this and that. You can actually just use the bioavailable form of the etheroids in their chemical structure, in the chemistry structure through the geometry, or through the alternative valence structure that I showed you with the spirals. And then you'll be able to work with your chemicals that way. Wait, so you mean to tell me I can just actually visualize the valence structure through the spirals of lithium or lead or whatnot. And then from there, I can actually add or remove different chemical components there. And then what would happen is whatever set of molecules I'm working with or whatever supply I'm working with will then be changed. Precisely. That's what we're bringing forth. And then also cellular engineering. So imagine with the specific etheroid, I can take a cell, like a skin cell, and by merging it with a specific etheroid, I can change that skin cell, its molecular structure into a stem cell, into a type of stem cell. So that means that we won't have like ethics with testing or gathering different products or samples or things like that. No. And this is exactly why etheroids exist and why we're trying to bring this out, is because it's going to end a lot of the unethical practices that exist within chemistry and biochemistry and the pharmaceutical industry and the healthcare industry. And it's going to change the way in which we interact with like our environment as a whole. You mean to tell me that climate change doesn't need to exist because we can just blast a few etheroids into the atmosphere that can just eat up all that methane and eat up all those PFAs, and actually like the whole entire like sky will like shine differently. And the sky is actually like not really blue, it's a little bit like lavender as well, precisely, right? Because our eyes, there's a specific layer in your eyes that's reacting to the nathroids in the sky that makes you think the sky is kind of blue. It's actually kind of bluish, kind of a little bit like lavenderish, because of the chemicals that are keeping our atmosphere healthy and alive, right? So that's just a little bit about like etheroids. So now let's go into nathroids. So what are nathroids here? So nathroids are classes of chemicals that alter intelligences of elements, right? So what does that mean, to alter the intelligence? So it changes the way that an element or a chemical functions. So it causes it to be restrictive in nature, decaying in nature, or cause death. So when we talk about climate change and we talk about these different gases in our environment, they're all nathroids that actually destroy the intelligences of the natural environment around us. So when we go ahead and we see, okay, all the ice is melting, that means that there's a specific chemical that's influencing the intelligence of ice solid, which is a type of intelligence on its own, and then diminishing that intelligence that allows the ice to then go ahead and melt, right? When we're looking at certain plants that are dying and we can't access these like rare fruits or these rare plants, and we see mass die-offs, it's a specific type of nathroid that is speaking to the intelligence, right, of that plant that is then creating that decay, and then we don't see that plant at the store or the market or whatnot anymore. So those are really what nathroids are. Okay, so I just put the chemical equation for lead because lead is a pure nathroid. You don't actually know that, some of you guys don't know that there's 6 types of lead, which is also some of the work that we're trying to bring out too. This is actually the carbon that we're like breathing in and that's in our body. It's like the first type of carbon. There's like at least 12 different versions based on the type of etheroids and the type of intelligence that etheroid had. So imagine like, oh wait, you mean to tell me that I can actually upgrade these type of supplements? And that's the difference between like supplements and pharmaceuticals. It's what version of the chemical they're using. Is it version 1? Is it version 2? And then the quality based on the type of etheroid that it's carrying. Same thing for nathroids too. So like the lead in flint is like the 6th type of lead, which actually then turns into radiation in the absence of a certain etheroid and in the presence of a certain nathroid, right? So then that changes how you're going to clean up oil spills and toxic dumps and things like that. And what do they call those things? Superfund sites. So what are some of the current impacts? So the oil industry has really been impacted by nathroids, meaning that these forever chemicals, aka nathroids, that were recklessly blasted into the environment for whatever reason, a lot of them impact the mental health and behavior of society. So pick and choose how you want to process that. They were diminishing a certain phytochemical when these forever chemicals were blasted into the environment. So some of those phytochemicals exist in your gas and the oil that you need to run your car or your stove or things like that. This is why gas is so expensive right now, right? They're kind of blaming it on inflation and the word no, because there's a specific phytochemical that is actually dying out and it's not able to conduct the specific charge necessary to allow that gas or that oil to conduct the charge that you need to run your car or run a generator or run an entire city. You see what I'm saying? So now what's happening is we're going back to the drawing board, trying to figure out, a lot of the scientists and chemists and oil companies are trying to figure out, okay, well, what chemical can we use to keep that same charge? It's a specific etheroid that can only be brought down with the specific type of platform that they're trying to stop from coming out, because it's going to diminish a lot of industries and a lot of people are going to lose money. The health industry, right? So several pharmaceutical products contain nathroids within them that are created as a byproduct of chemical engineering. So what's happening here is what we see with the addiction epidemic and chronic illness epidemic is a lot of these different chemicals that people are taking for their health are actually creating more nathroids within their body that cause them to then have to take this chemical and that chemical and that chemical. And then they have bad reactions, natheric reactions with natural chemicals within the body that create more decay, create adverse effects. And this is why we have something called a drug interaction checker, right? How do these two chemicals interact within the body? Well, with the ethroids, we wouldn't need that because these two chemicals are very intelligent, and then they will communicate with each other like, oh, hey, we're not supposed to like merge with each other. Let's bring down this other ethroid that we can both like initiate and activate. Then we'll be able to go ahead and process this chemical compound so it can then benefit what it's supposed to benefit, right? So this is what we're trying to bring down, this like smart type of chemistry. I've heard about that click chemistry. It actually doesn't work without ethroids and nathroids. So another thing is the food industry, right? So certain foods cannot grow on the planet, due to the overproliferation of nathroids that, retract, decay, and destroy their intelligences. And this is why we're talking about a lot of food shortages and a lot of things like mangoes and other tropical foods and chocolate not being able to grow because of the nathroids that are on this planet that destroy a specific etheric layer that the seeds and the plant need to survive within this environment on this planet. So what are some of the challenges to bringing, why aren't more people talking about this? Well, academic cloud chasing. I want to be the one to talk about it. I want to be the one to talk about it. No, there's a lot of that going on right now where it's okay, well, we're gonna have a catastrophe on the planet and then no one's gonna be talking about it, right? And then also too, there's a deactivation of thousands of businesses. A lot of businesses that are actually creating these forever chemicals and damaging the environment and actually are really not necessary. They're really just like rackets. They would actually cause a lot of problems, right? It would decentralize this industry, which a lot of people are talking about. And then there's a reduction, like of course, to the monopolization happening. And then on top of that, imagine if you had a society that was healthy and happy, right? And the pharmaceutical industry couldn't like benefit off of depression, which is just a destabilization in a specific receptor that needs a specific ethroid to complete it and restore it, right? Imagine if we didn't need all that. Imagine if we didn't have like chronic illnesses because everyone could get the medications that they needed, $10,000 drugs like Tipsoro and things like that, which actually have an nathroid in them. And other chemicals that they need for rare diseases and genetic disorders. Imagine if we can do that. Imagine if instead of having CRISPR that has a lot of ethical issues, we just use an etheroid to like clear up your DNA and rewrite your DNA transcription process, right? So there's a lot that's going on right now to stop this from coming out and it's not working. So what are some of the opportunities you guys have to learn more about this? Well, first, the book that I'm putting out, Primer on the New Chemistry, it's a textbook. And also like a step-by-step guide in terms of how to activate these ethroids and diminish nathroids, their communication and also foundational framework with other systems that we wouldn't even like think of, like physics and how that relates to chemistry, technology, how that relates to chemistry, coding, and how that relates to like chemistry and activating a different type of chemistry, right? Which is the new systems training. How do you activate this different type of chemistry? Because chemistry is actually an ancient practice from ancient Kemet and other societies. And a lot of this work that we're trying to put out is from those ancient practices and societies. And a lot of that work was lost, it was purposely hidden, it was diminished in order to create this racket that we see now in the chemical game, the science game, the pharmaceutical game, the healthcare game, right? The chemical engineering platform that we're going to bring on, work you can go on and you can work with these different chemicals, work with etheroids, create a beauty business that doesn't have to test on animals or have like harsh byproducts, harsh reactions like chapped lips or things like that. Create like a chemical company where you can create like different type of paints and things like that that don't have like, that don't need harmful chemicals to like keep them binded and keep the molecular structure going, things such as that. And then also design sessions, right? Where, okay, we want to design this type of product or platform. Can you come in and help us with this? Yes, that's some of the stuff that we're doing. And then also, and that's like where the chemical consulting comes in, where, okay, if you use this and this and this, this is going to be, you're going to create this adverse reaction. This phytochemical may stop growing on the planet. These are some of the things that we're doing in terms of teaching people about the adverse effects to the etheric reality that they live in, that their chemicals and their businesses are having. So those are just some of the opportunities, okay? So thank you so much. 10 minutes was not enough, but I hope you guys understand the concept of ethroids and nathroids. There's a free sample of the book on my website, so you guys can go ahead and get into some of that. And I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy. Goodbye.